Sabah everybody and welcome back to the channel, and today I want to talk to you guys about a phone that starts at $150 called the Poco M3. When you hear $150, first thing that comes to mind is compromises. I can tell you right now that the tailored experience that the M3 is offering us from Poco is actually bringing in a lot of the flagship features that we normally look for, namely a 6,000 milliampere battery, a headphone jack, an IR blaster to control our TVs, a 6.5-inch display here with stereo speakers, and of course the ability of using the 6,000 milliampere battery that built in inside of this phone to charge other devices, not only just to use it for your own phone. This is TK, this is the Poco M3, let's check it out. Like and subscribe, and make sure you hit that bell icon so they are always notified to whenever we have new videos on the channel. So here we have it, the brand new Poco M3. Again, this is a budget line of devices that is coming. There's two different variants of this. There's one that's going to start at $150 and another one for about $169. The lower end model is going to run 64 gigs. The higher one will have 128 gigs of internal storage. Those are the two differences. For the most part, the rest, as far as the specifications, the CPU, the display, all of the other things here are pretty much the exact same experience. The package, as actually says right there, 6,000 milliampere battery. This is by far one of the largest batteries we've seen on a device. It does charge with an 18-watt charger that's included in the box, so just keep that in mind. And again, we have a triple camera setup on the back, front-facing camera, teardrop camera that's positioned at the top, a fingerprint sensor that's present as part of the actual power button. So the power button and the fingerprint sensor are in the same spot, which makes them very nice and very fast to use. A volume rocker that's present right above it, and of course right here on the left we have the SIM tray that's also supported, basically 2 SIM cards and an SD card for expandable storage. On the top we have an IR blaster as well as a 3.5mm headphone jack, and the IR blaster sitting right there, and this was the additional microphone for the camera. On the bottom we have one of the other microphones, USB-C for data charge, and again 18-watt charger included in the box, and the bottom firing speaker that's married with the earpiece at the top to give us a stereo, basically really nice implementation. The actual backing on the back here is made out of plastic, but it is textured to feel like it's leather. It is not leather, and definitely you can see here the big Poco name. The rest of this is pretty much just more aesthetics. It's not really driving anything in there. As far as the display, we have a 6.5-inch display here. This is an IPS panel. The processor is the Snapdragon 662, and what we're also running here is 4 gigs of RAM, 128 gigs of storage for the model that I have, and again, there's 2 separate models available. I did receive one update since I've had the device, and that actually just updated this morning for some stability performance. It is running the October 1st security patch update with Android 10.0, basically the Poco version of the MIUI 12 running operating system. So this is not going to be the standard MIUI from Xiaomi. It's basically a tailored experience from Poco. Other than that, we obviously have the same configuration that we've had in the past, Android 10.0 customizations, all the different things that we normally have. We can log in with our Mi account if we have it, Google account, Google Play services, of course, right out of the box installed, and it works perfectly fine. Again, 128 gigs is the actual capacity that I have on mine. You're able to pick it up either 64 or 128, but both are expandable with the SD card slot that we have here. Now, as far as connectivity, there's not going to be any 5G connectivity. Again, this is a budget device. I am able to pick up 4G LTE here in the US. Depending where you are, your experience is going to be a little bit different. As far as you could definitely see here, I was able to get a different, depending on where I was, but the fastest I was able to get was about 48 down and 25 up, which is actually pretty decent comparing to where we are, and I am running it on AT&T here in the US. And as far as the performance of this chipset, again, this is a 6 series chipset, so it's not going to be the fastest one on the market. MIUI is actually pretty decent. It runs really nice, and you have obviously the ability of customizing and then of course using the different functions that we get with it. We have the Google feed sitting on the left, access to the camera, obviously, all the different apps. Poco by default does include a swipe up app drawer, so you're able to go in there, and it is categorized, so I'm able to swipe through. Go ahead and say got it. And you're able to basically see the different categories that it gives you. One thing I do like about the launcher itself is that when you do jump into the app drawer, your search function is sitting at the bottom, making it very comfortable to work with a one-handed experience. As I mentioned to you guys at the beginning of this video, this also includes an IR blaster sitting at the top, and I like it very much because I've configured it, and this is something that we don't see as much on many devices nowadays. So a built-in IR blaster that it is really nice, it's really simple to use. And as far as the optics that we have here, we have a triple camera setup in the back, although not necessarily an ultra wide. So we have a 48 megapixel that's going to be the primary shooter, a secondary one that's a 2 megapixel macro, and the third one is a secondary, is a 2 megapixel depth sensor. So essentially 2 cameras that we're able to use, a 48 and a 2. And of course, on the front, we have an 8 megapixel camera that's capable of giving us, again, selfies, videos, and so on. Maximum resolution as far as the actual video on both the front-facing and the back-facing camera is going to be 1080p 30 frames per second. So when we jump into video, we'll notice right here 1080p 30 is the maximum on this side, and if we switch over to the back, pretty much the same experience, 1080p 30. And I think this is more of a limitation of the processor than it is a limitation of the sensor, since we have a 48 megapixel sensor. We have access to Pro mode for both video and for stills. Video mode, of course, as I mentioned to you guys, photo mode, typical, no wide angle lens, so you have pretty much the ability to take in pictures with a straight focal length, or you're able to basically turn on the AI option, which tends to give a little bit more saturation boost in there. There is HDR support as well, and of course portrait support. Last but not least, we also have the ability of using the full power of the sensor, short video, slow motion, document, panorama, time-lapse, and of course nighttime photography. And as I'm showing you guys with those pictures that I just shared right now, those are just typical images. I probably would say that the cameras on here are not going to be performing as a flagship or a mid-range performance level. In good lighting, you should be able to get some decent pictures. Video, again, 1080p 30 on both the front and on the back. So again, just tailor the experience down to the price that you're looking at. At 150 bucks, you can't really go wrong with this. Now, I'm pretty sure you guys are not wondering, why do I have the Kishi controller here from Razer? This is one of my favorite Android gaming controllers to date. Now, I did test out a few things here as far as gaming. I did install PUBG, I installed Call of Duty Mobile, and of course Asphalt 9. Last but not least, I also did install Kishi, because I feel like Kishi, again, it just gives us a best way to experience gaming on this device. Now, although not all of my games are configured or compatible with it, Dead Trigger 2 as well as Modern Combat Versus is compatible, and it works really nice. And of course, because we have a big 6.5-inch display with the stereo speakers that we have here, it makes the experience so much better when we don't have to have our fingers covering the display. So Dead Trigger, and again, as I'm showing you guys with some of the gameplay right now, looks really, really nice. One thing I would probably say is, as long as you're connected to Wi-Fi, your experience is going to be really good. The game center that we have also built in here from Xiaomi, or from Poco essentially, is actually very nice. It helps boost the performance. There's built-in screen recording. There's also the ability of tailoring the experience. On PUBG, I was able to get smooth as well as basically HD on it, so it was actually pretty decent as far as the frame rate. And of course, gameplay was very nice. We have a big enough display to give us the best experience for not only watching movies, but also playing games, as you can imagine. Now, one thing can be said, of course, is the fact that a large display like this, even though it is IPS and not OLED, you're still going to be able to get great images and great video. Stereo speakers, obviously, I turn off the music or the sound here because of copyright concerns. But again, the overall experience is going to work really nice. Android 10.0 here runs really good. And of course, since we definitely want to be able to hear how well those speakers perform, let's do a quick audio test. Now, as it is typical for us here, we play Alex Scrindo Jumbo by NCS Release, so it's a non-copyrighted song. Volume level is all the way to 100%.
Check it up.
Absolutely fantastic. The sound on this, honestly, for 150 bucks, it's almost impossible for you to imagine how well this device is going to be well-rounded for what you're looking for. Now, of course, we don't want to go too far without doing a quick sample of the front-facing and the back-facing camera here with video, again, sample on both sides. So let's go ahead and start off with the front-facing camera on the Poco M3. The front-facing camera's capabilities are at 1080p 30 frames per second maximum. So definitely not going to be the highest resolution, but, you know, again, for about 130 bucks starting price with the early pricing, you really have to appreciate what they were able to do with this device. When it comes to the back-facing sensor, 1080p 30 is also the maximum we're able to shoot here. I think this limitation is not due to the sensor, but it's also due to the fact that we're running a 6 series processor. So again, for 150 bucks, 1080p 30, as long as it does it well, I think it's really appreciated for this price point. And of course, all of the other features that you have on this device with the other lenses that we have there. So what do I think about this device? Would I recommend it to anybody looking to buy a budget phone? I think the Poco M3 is a very well tailored experience from Poco at 150 bucks. Now, it starts at 150, and there's the other model again. The additional 128 gigs goes at $569. I think it's a great experience, and there's going to be some pros and cons into this. So obviously, it's not all roses and everything. So keep in mind, first and foremost, it's a large, massive battery. 6,000 milliampere will last you at least through the next day. The display, 6.5 inches, great for content consumption, watching movies, Netflix. The stereo speakers makes the experience even better. There's no question that basically content consumption is a very key factor into what they were building into this device. When it comes down to obviously having a headphone jack, the IR blaster, the large battery, and of course the expandable storage, those are nice things that we typically see from mid-rangers or even flagships brought in at $150. Now, the flip side of that, where the experience gets a little bit different here, is that they married the Snapdragon 662 with 4 gigs of RAM and MIUI 10, MIUI 12 with Android 10.0. Now, one thing I would probably say is this is not going to be the smoothest experience overall. I probably would recommend you closing a lot of the applications running in the background, as it tends to kind of slow down every once in a while. They are pushing out some updates. There was one update that was pushed out this morning for stability improvements. So they're looking at it and they're definitely working on that experience. But again, $150, you can't really expect $500, $600 experience without having some kind of compromises. And I think, again, 6 gigs of RAM may have been a better decision to go with on this one as opposed to 4. But again, at 150, you can't really mess with it. So would I recommend this to anybody looking for a budget device? Absolutely. It's going to give you a very well-rounded experience at 150. The cameras are decent and good lighting, not going to be the best cameras. And again, keep in mind, the 48 megapixel sensor that we have in here is not limited by that. It's limited more about the processor that we have, and that's why we don't have 4K and we don't have any higher refresh rate or higher resolution video than just 1080p 30 frames per second. But I think as long as it does it well, there's no reason why we can't appreciate the price. So if you're looking for a budget phone at the end of 2020 or even the beginning of 2021, the Poco M3 offers us a very compelling story, because it offers us a device that is starting at $150, a 4G LTE connectivity, a large battery that will last you for days, and again, great for content consumption, watching movies, meetings, and so on. Everything is going to run perfectly fine here. And of course, if you want to just marry that with the Kishi controller, you're taking it to the next level by being able to enjoy a large display without having to even put your fingers in front of it, and of course getting the compatibility, and of course just the ease of play with a controller like this. I'll give you guys to both the Poco M3 where to be able to pick it up, as well as the Kishi controller if you'd like to be able to check something like this and of course enjoy it on any of your Android devices. This is TK. Thank you very much for you, and thank you of course to Poco for allowing me to check out the M3 and share with you guys my experience. I'll see you guys in the next video.